Under the overripe laughter, muffled by the clinking of glasses, a phrase echoed, one that should have stayed between girlfriends. But someone else heard it. He wasn't supposed to. He couldn't have. And everything changed. Words drunkenly thrown into the air suddenly cut sharper than a blade. One careless confession, one comparison, one line that seemed funny at the time, and the man who once planned a future with you transforms into your most dangerous enemy. The one you thought was safe turns out to be cold, perceptive, calculating. Now every step feels like walking a minefield. He doesn't yell. He doesn't lash out in anger. He waits. He collects. He records. All the whispers behind his back, the screenshots, the glances you thought went unnoticed. They're weapons now. Want control? Try reclaiming it when your reputation, career, and private life are on the line. Welcome to the game where the past isn't just remembered, it's meticulously archived, and just when you think you've hit rock bottom, he'll make sure you fall even further. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now let's get started. I stood frozen at the threshold, my pulse racing and the weight of my engagement ring pressing down on me. Not from its size, but from the overwhelming realization of what I had just done. I had just unleashed a torrent of hurtful words at Brandon, my fiancé, in front of my closest friends. The things I said were so harsh and unforgivable that I could barely wrap my mind around the thought of ever forgiving myself. But this wasn't how it was supposed to go. It was meant to be a private conversation, a drunken confession shared between girlfriends. I never imagined that Brandon would walk in at that exact moment, overhearing me belittle him, calling him safe and predictable. Now, the foundation of everything between us seemed on the brink of crumbling. "Brandon," I whispered, my voice quivering. "Can we talk?" His eyes, once so warm, now felt cold, devoid of all emotion. He had entered quietly, packing up his things, shirts, his gaming console, a charger, fragments of his life, as if preparing to walk away. "What's left to talk about?" he asked, his tone flat and detached. "You made it clear," he continued, setting down a small box. "I'm just your backup plan, the safe choice. The lesser man." My throat tightened in shame. "I never meant for you to hear that," I stammered, but I knew that the damage had already been done. "I was just venting," I tried to explain, but he let out a dry laugh. "Right. Just a casual conversation about how I'm boring in bed, how your ex was better, how I don't excite you. Just harmless talk, Monica." Tears burned my eyes. "I'm sorry," I pleaded. "People say stupid things when they're drunk." But Brandon remained unmoved. "Stupid?" he scoffed, bitterness dripping from his words. "That's an understatement. You called me compact but dependable, like some cheap car. And let's not forget how you turned the lights off because you're too embarrassed to look at me naked." I winced, remembering how Natalie, Sabrina, and Melanie had laughed, and how I had joined in, not realizing the toll it was taking on Brandon. "I didn't mean to humiliate you," I lied, even though I knew that was exactly what I had done. The alcohol just made me say things I didn't mean. He dropped the box onto the coffee table with a sharp movement, his jaw tight. "Sure, blame it on the wine. Anything but taking responsibility for how easily you tear me apart." His words hit like a physical blow. I knew then that something had been broken beyond repair. "Brandon, you can't just leave," I begged, my voice desperate. "You're my fiancé." He smirked, but there was no warmth in it. "Fiancé?" he repeated, his voice dripping with disdain. "That's just a title you gave me when you got tired of waiting for someone better." I reached out to him, but he stepped away, heading for the door. "Please," I whispered, my voice breaking. "Let me make it right." He turned to face me, his gaze icy. "And how do you fix the fact that I was just your backup? The guy who pays the bills on time but isn't exciting enough for you?" I opened my mouth, but the words failed me. How could I fix this? How could I take back everything I had said? My mind raced, but I knew I had already unleashed every cruel thought I'd been harboring. His eyes swept over me, taking in my trembling form and the tear-streaked face. If he had seen me like this just a week ago, he would have held me in his arms, offering comfort. Tonight, he barely seemed to register my presence, his gaze distant and detached. "There's nothing to say," he muttered. "Nothing worth hearing." And with that, he walked out, the door slamming behind him, and the sound reverberated like an irreversible finality. I stood there, motionless, as tears fell freely down my face. At that moment, I had no idea that this was only the beginning of a much darker conflict, one that Brandon was about to initiate, a storm that would soon engulf everything in its path. After my friends left, still laughing at the jokes I had made at Brandon's expense, I felt an unsettling sense of vindication. The wine had loosened my tongue, and I had poured out all my frustrations. How Brandon was stable but boring, decent but uninspired in bed, reliable but lacking excitement. We all overshare in moments like these, but my words had crossed the line. They had been cruel. Natalie had smirked, refilling my glass. "Monica, I can't believe you said you'd leave him if Adrian proposed. Are you sure about this wedding?" I had giggled, feeling a rush of freedom. Just being honest. "Remember Adrian?" I had teased, unstoppable. Six-pack arms for days. Meanwhile, Brandon, well, the lights stay off for a reason. The laughter from my friends echoed in my ears, but I hadn't truly grasped the harm I was causing. At the time, it felt good to let it all out. It felt liberating to air my dissatisfaction, to make fun of Brandon. After all, he wasn't there, right? But he had been. He had walked in for a charger and overheard every cruel remark. His dignity, his sense of self, everything about him had been shredded in front of my friends. He had left silently, but I would soon realize that silence was only the calm before the storm. 2 days passed without a word from him. No texts, no calls, no morning messages. I figured he was just busy. But by the 3rd day, my phone buzzed with a message from Brandon. "We need to talk. I'll be at your place tonight." A lump formed in my throat. Maybe he wanted to discuss the wedding plans. But when I opened the door that evening, everything changed. There he was, standing in the doorway, arms crossed, his eyes cold and distant. There was no greeting, no kiss, no touch. The tension between us was palpable. "What's going on?" I tried to sound casual, but my voice faltered. His eyes bore into me. "Where should I begin? Maybe you should start with how you called me a placeholder, just waiting for someone better to come along. Or how you mocked my body, saying you couldn't climax with me unless you imagined someone bigger." My stomach twisted as the words landed like daggers. Panic gripped me. "Brandon, how did you—" His jaw tightened. I heard everything. Every joke about how boring I am in bed. "You didn't think I'd actually show up at Natalie's, did you?" "Brandon," I stammered. "It wasn't anything serious, just some casual conversation between friends." But he cut me off, his voice trembling with emotion. "You humiliated me, Monica. I had to listen as the woman I thought I might marry listed everything wrong with me, and it seemed like you were enjoying it. You enjoyed it, didn't you?" His words hit me like a slap. Guilt and fear surged through me. I didn't mean to. I was just trying to—" "What?" he snapped, voice sharp. "Was it just a joke to you, mocking the man you claim to love? Acting like you're above it all because you slept with some trainer, or maybe you think I'll always stick around so you can say whatever cruel things you want?" The tears welled up, but I fought them back with all my might. I was an idiot, okay? I messed up. But that's not how I really feel. I just said that to make them laugh. His glare was filled with bitterness, his eyes cold. "You think that makes it okay?" I shook my head, despite my best efforts. "No, But Brandon, I love you. I got carried away. He let out a hollow laugh. Yeah, you love me so much that if Adrian just gave you the slightest attention, you'd crawl back to his bed. You said that, Monica. You even bragged about it. My hand pressed over my mouth as the memory of my own words hit me. If Adrian ever got his act together and proposed, I'd probably leave in a heartbeat. At the time, it had seemed like a silly, edgy comment, nothing to be taken seriously. Now, seeing how much it had hurt him, I regretted every single word. Let's talk this out, I pleaded. We've been together for years. We have a future. We can fix this. He stared into my eyes, and for a moment, I saw a fleeting glimpse of the Brandon I once knew, the gentle, caring, patient one, but it vanished almost instantly. No, he said, stepping away. I don't think we can fix this. Some things can't be undone. Over the following days, everything between us began to crumble. Instead of working things out, we became enemies. Brandon stopped answering my calls for an entire week. Through a mutual friend, I found out he was staying elsewhere. There was no word about what was next for us. Humiliated and filled with anger, I turned to my friends for support, but they had all been part of the conversation that had hurt him. Some of them said we'd gone too far. Others argued that he was overreacting. Monica, Natalie said, pacing beside me, just take responsibility. Apologize. No excuses. I scowled. I tried, but he won't listen. He's painted me as the villain. Melanie hesitated. That was rough. You know how guys are about that kind of thing, right? I groaned. I know I messed up, but does that mean he just vanishes? We're engaged. We need to fix this, not just run away from it. Sabrina scoffed. You're forgetting one thing. Men have egos. You practically said he was your last resort. I'd leave too. Frustration bubbled inside me. My friends had encouraged the jokes, but now they wanted me to beg for forgiveness. The hypocrisy stung, but deep down I knew they were right. I had to make things right. But when I tried to reach Brandon again, I saw a side of him that wasn't just pain. There was something darker behind it all. Late one evening, I heard a knock on the door. My heart skipped a beat, hoping it was Brandon, finally ready to talk. But when I opened the door, it wasn't the Brandon I knew standing there. His eyes were bloodshot, his face drawn with exhaustion and anger. Without saying a word, I stepped aside to let him in. He stood silently in the foyer, scanning the place where we had once envisioned a future together. The silence felt thick between us. Then he pulled out his phone and began scrolling through it. What are you doing? I asked, my confusion growing. He shoved the screen in front of me. Do you recognize these? My blood ran cold. It was a collection of screenshots, private messages from Natalie, Melanie, and even myself, texts where I had torn into Brandon in ways that were both embarrassing and cruel. One of the messages read, "He's sweet, but seriously, is it too much to ask for a guy who's bigger than average? I feel like I have to close my eyes and pretend he's Adrian just to get through it." My face drained of color, and I turned away from the phone. You went through my phone? He looked at me, unflinching. I used your cat's birthday as the passcode, not the smartest choice. And yeah, I wanted to see if it was just a one-off thing. Clearly, it wasn't. My mouth went dry. Brandon, that's private. You can't just... He cut me off, voice biting. You want to talk about privacy after you publicly humiliated me in front of your friends? Don't make me laugh. I reached for the phone, but he yanked it away from me. Brandon, please, delete them. He smiled coldly. Oh, I'm keeping them. Every word, every screenshot. I still have the recordings from that night. Did you realize I caught every single word? My phone was silently recording while you tore into me, telling me how worthless you thought I was. My heart pounded in my chest, fast enough that I feared I might pass out. Why would you do something so cruel? He responded simply, leverage. His voice was cold, as though it was the most natural thing in the world. You hurt me, so now I get to ruin your reputation. If you twist the story to make me look like the villain or try to garner sympathy by portraying me as some idiot, guess what? I'll play the recording for everyone, word for word. I stood there, speechless, shocked by his sudden coldness. "Is this blackmail?" I asked, my voice shaking. He shrugged nonchalantly. "Call it what you want. I see it as insurance. You humiliated me and now it's my turn to humiliate you. Seems fair enough to me." Tears stung my face, but I wouldn't let them fall. I never cheated on you. I just needed to vent. "Why are you doing this?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. His tone dropped, turning dark and menacing. "Because you're not just some random girlfriend. You were the woman I planned to marry. You promised me your love, and behind my back, you made a joke out of me. You turned me into a punchline. You made me seem pathetic, like some fool who couldn't satisfy you. That's worth more than just an apology," he spat, his words venomous. I leaned back against the wall, trembling. "Brandon, what do you want from me?" His lips curled into a cruel smile. "I want you to feel what I felt. I want you to experience the humiliation, to know what it's like when your most private moments are exposed, when everyone looks at you with pity or disgust. But I won't do it right away. I'll leave you wondering when or if I'll ever strike." A wave of dread washed over me. I realized with chilling clarity the irony of the situation. I had always thought of Brandon as the safe, predictable one, someone incapable of real malice. But now, standing before me, was a man who was cold, calm, and calculating, someone I didn't recognize. Without another word, he slipped his phone into his pocket, turned, and walked away. No final words, no chance for me to beg. I collapsed onto the floor, sobbing, realizing that the sweet fiancée I once knew was gone, replaced by something much darker. In a twisted way, my fear morphed into anger. I told myself he had no right to invade my privacy, no right to threaten me like this. If anyone was the villain here, it was him, the one I had always thought was harmless. Now I was the one suffering at his hands. "Natalie, you need to be careful," she warned when I told her what happened. "He sounds unstable. Are you sure you're safe?" I scoffed, though my confidence was shaky. Physically, he wouldn't hurt me, but he could destroy my life in other ways. "He's got texts where I vented about hating my job, where I called my boss an idiot, where I faked sick days. If those ever get out, I'm finished." Melanie bit her lip. "Can you do some damage control? Maybe tell your boss you're going through a rough time?" I groaned in frustration. "You don't get it. He has proof I skipped meetings, forged doctor's notes, and mocked management. If that leaks, I could be blacklisted from the whole industry." Natalie's expression darkened. "That's insane. Does he really want to ruin you like that?" I exhaled, my breath shaky. "He wants me to feel humiliated, just like he did. This is his version of justice." Sabrina, nervously scrolling through her phone, murmured, "He's punishing you, but maybe if you lay low, he'll calm down." "Calm down?" I repeated, bitterness rising in my voice. "We're supposed to be planning our wedding. Instead, he's threatening me with revenge porn. Except it's not even porn. It's just my humiliating confessions." "This is beyond calming down," I added in a burst of anger. I vented again, face to face with my friends, calling Brandon a petty, insecure, controlling jerk, and lamenting how much I regretted agreeing to marry him. I made them promise not to share anything electronically, terrified that he might find a way to spy on me or hack my phone again. But even as I vented, I knew deep down I was only making things worse. One evening, still seething with frustration, I made a reckless choice. I called Adrian, the ex I had once compared so easily to Brandon. Part of me wanted comfort, while another part sought revenge. He picked up on the second ring. "Monica, I thought you'd be married by now," he said. I forced a laugh. "Yeah, the wedding's on hold. It might not even happen." He whistled. Guess your fiancé didn't live up to expectations. I swallowed my guilt and asked if we could meet. He agreed without hesitation. The next evening, we sat in the same place where we'd shared countless dates. The memories rushed back. "You used to say I made you feel alive," he said, handing me a drink. "So, what happened?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I forced a smile. "You weren't ready to settle down." "I got tired of waiting." He smirked. "Maybe this is the person I've become now. People change, don't they?" Guilt slowly crept in, gnawing at my thoughts, making me question whether I was truly acting out of spite towards Brandon. But any flicker of reason was quickly overtaken by bitterness. I leaned in closer, allowing Adrian's hand to rest casually on my thigh, chasing the fleeting rush of desire, despite knowing that stability was probably the smarter choice. That's when I spotted him, half hidden in the dim light, slouched against the far wall of the bar. Brandon. Our gazes locked. He gave a mocking smirk, raising his glass in a sarcastic toast before turning away, melting into the crowd. A weight sank in my chest. I could feel the blood drain from my face. Adrian noticed, his gaze shifting to me with concern. "Monica, are you all right?" I forced a weak laugh. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just thought I saw someone." But dread settled in my gut. If Brandon had seen me with Adrian, would this escalate things? He'd made it clear he wanted to hurt me. Maybe seeing me with another man was exactly the kind of thing that would set him off. He had all the ammunition, every damning message, every photo, every piece of humiliation he could hurl my way. Sure enough, the next morning, my phone buzzed with a new message from Brandon. "Rooftop lounge on 7th. 9 p.m. Come alone." My hands trembled as I read it. Was this about confronting me over Adrian? Was it some kind of trap? But what other option did I have? At 9 p.m., I stepped into the upscale lounge, my heart pounding as I scanned the room filled with sleekly dressed people. There he was, standing at the far end, leaning against the railing with the city skyline spread out behind him. He looked flawless, in a dark suit and a crisp white shirt. But it was the coldness in his eyes that made my skin crawl. "Hi," I murmured, barely above a whisper as I approached him. He nodded but didn't smile. "You look good," he said flatly. "Better than last night, when you were letting Adrian paw at you in public." My face flushed with a mix of anger and shame. "So you were watching," I said, my voice trembling. He shrugged, swirling his drink lazily. "I wanted to see how far you'd go. Another little piece of evidence for my collection." I swallowed hard, trying to fight back tears. "I never cheated on you. You left before anything could happen." His gaze was icy, unwavering. "So you expect me to be thankful that you only flirted with your ex while we're still engaged? Is that your big moral high ground?" I turned away, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. "What do you want me to say?" he asked, draining his glass before setting it down with a soft clink. "I want you to stop playing the victim," he snapped. "You set all of this in motion when you humiliated me behind my back, and now you're doing it publicly. It's like you can't help but degrade me, even though you know I could destroy you if I wanted to." My heart raced, each beat thundering in my chest. "Brandon, I swear I wasn't trying to humiliate you. I was just angry, upset." "You think you're the only one upset?" He scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "You think I enjoy seeing you drag this out? This is all on you, Monica." He leaned in, his words cold and venomous. "You made me realize that I was never truly respected or wanted in this relationship." Tears welled up, threatening to spill over. "I do respect you," I whispered, my voice faltering. He hissed in disgust. "Stop lying. You told everyone my body was a joke compared to your ex. You said I was too boring to make you happy. You fantasized about him while we were together. That's not respect." I gripped the railing, gasping for air. "I never meant it. I was just drunk, talking without thinking." His gaze hardened. "I'm starting to think nothing you say has any weight. Drunk or not, you said it." and you've said it enough times for it to mean something." The silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken words, broken only by the distant hum of traffic and the chatter of other patrons. Tears freely flowed now, no longer hidden by my carefully crafted composure. If there was even a shred of empathy left in him, I hoped he could see how deeply sorry I was. But instead, he leaned in, his voice low and menacing. "You want to keep pushing me? Keep messing around with Adrian. Keep telling your friends I'm worthless. Keep doing it, Monica, because I will destroy you. I have everything. Your job, your relationships, your family's respect. I'll burn it all down if you keep crossing the line." My breath caught. "You can't." "Oh, I can," he said almost softly. "And I will. Don't doubt me for a second." After that chilling encounter, I stumbled home, consumed by a storm of sobs and anxiety. The following morning, I called in sick to work, feigning illness, too shaken to face the day ahead. My phone buzzed with messages from Natalie, Melanie, and even Sabrina, all reaching out with concern, but I couldn't bear their sympathy or subtle judgment. Later that week, my mother called, excited about wedding favors and floral arrangements. My stomach twisted as I realized I'd have to pretend everything was fine, or risk her unrelenting questions about the growing tension between Brandon and me. If she knew even a fraction of the truth, I feared she'd collapse in shock. That evening, I forced myself to continue the wedding planning, flipping through catalogs and color schemes with robotic detachment, as though my heart hadn't shattered into countless pieces. I sent Brandon a message hoping, though it may have been naive, that it could be the first step toward repairing the rift between us. "Monica, we need to talk. This can't go on. If we're ending things, we need closure. If there's something worth saving, we have to try." But there was no reply. Hours passed before I sent another message, more desperate this time. "Monica, please, we can't stay stuck in this toxic limbo." Still, no response. At midnight, I found myself gazing at the ring on my finger, the one Brandon had placed there, remembering his face that day, full of hope. I had been ecstatic at the time, thinking I had found a man who could provide the stability I'd always wanted. But now, that memory stung like a cruel joke. Perhaps I hadn't loved him for who he truly was, but only for the sense of safety he brought. And now, I had destroyed him without even considering the consequences. But did that make his threats acceptable? The blackmail? My emotions were in turmoil. Guilt, anger, regret, and fear all swirling inside me, leaving me feeling utterly helpless, unable to find any way out. In my desperation, I reached out to Travis, a mutual friend who worked in the same industry as Brandon. Maybe he knew something that could give me an edge. If I had leverage, I could force Brandon into a corner. Travis agreed to meet me at a quiet cafe on the outskirts of town. He looked uneasy as I spoke in hushed tones, carefully leaving out the most painful details, but making it clear that Brandon had been using private information to manipulate me. "I can't believe he'd do that," Travis muttered, rubbing his chin. "Brandon's always been so calm and collected." I let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, well, you didn't see his face when I joked about preferring my ex's body." It changed. Travis leaned in, his expression now serious. "So, you're looking for leverage?" A wave of relief washed over me. Yes, exactly. Anything that could make him back off. I know Brandon's not perfect. Everyone has skeletons. Travis sighed. "I'll see what I can find, but I can't promise anything. Brandon's meticulous. He doesn't leave loose ends. But there might be some rumors about mishandled accounts floating around." A small glimmer of hope sparked within me. "Thanks." But as Travis left, a wave of guilt crept over me. Was I really stooping to Brandon's level? Was I planning to use his weaknesses against him? But after weeks of fear, I felt as though I had no other option. The following days dragged on in tense silence. I avoided any communication that might alert Brandon, paranoid that he might intercept something. At night, I lay awake, wondering if tomorrow would be the day he finally destroyed me. My phone was always on silent, but whenever it lit up with a notification, my heart would race. Then, a week later, the text came. "I'm coming over tonight. Pack up my things. Don't argue." I cursed under my breath, pacing the living room. He had already taken most of his things, leaving only a few workout clothes, a box of personal items, and some random gadgets. At exactly 8 p.m., he walked through the door, his expression unreadable. I handed him the box. "This is everything." He nodded, casually tossing it aside before locking eyes with me. "We need to talk." My throat tightened. "That's what I've been saying for days, but you never responded." He shrugged, his gaze distant. "I didn't have anything to say until now," he replied. "I've been figuring out my next steps, deciding what my life will look like, whether you're in it or not." My stomach twisted. "And?" I whispered. "And I've decided I don't want you as my wife." Tears welled up in my eyes immediately, but alongside them, anger flared. "Then why are you here torturing me? Why don't you just leave for good?" He stepped closer, his jaw tightening. "Because I want to see if you'll beg." A wave of humiliation hit me hard. "You're sick." A bitter smirk tugged at his lips. "Am I? Or am I just giving you a taste of what you gave me? If you had any self-control, we'd still be planning our wedding. Instead, here I am, trying to figure out how best to destroy you." A sob tore through me. "I'm sorry. Brandon, please. I know I messed up. If you want me to beg, I will." My legs trembled as I started to kneel, but he grabbed my arm, his grip tight and unsteady. "Don't," he muttered, his voice rough. "Don't degrade yourself. It's not worth it anymore." We stood there in miserable silence, both on the brink of tears. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally released my arm and stepped back. "Monica," he said quietly, "I loved you. But now when I look at you, all I see is how easily you tore me apart." Tears streamed down my face. "You think I'll forget that?" "No," he replied, shaking his head. "But maybe someday you'll forgive me. Forgiveness no longer plays a part in my plans. Right now, my priority is self-preservation. You taught me that lesson all too well." He grabbed his box, gave me one last lingering look, and left, leaving me trembling. In that instant, I realized the full extent of his resentment and how thoroughly I had obliterated the person he once was. Travis finally reached out with a possible lead: allegations of financial misconduct at Brandon's company. It wasn't concrete proof, but it offered a small spark of hope. If I could uncover evidence of fraud, it could serve as my leverage. If Brandon chose to release those humiliating texts I sent him, I could counterattack and destroy his career. Desperate, I invited Travis over, and we began sifting through the documents he had managed to smuggle out. But as we went through the papers, the case seemed to fall apart. The evidence was weak, barely more than circumstantial. Worse still, Travis lingered far too close, his hand brushing against my back and shoulder, as though expecting something in return. My skin crawled with discomfort, but I couldn't stop. If flirting was the price for getting the proof I needed, then I'd pay it. After 2 hours of searching, a sharp knock on the door jolted us both. My heart raced. Could it be Brandon? I peered through the peephole, but there was nothing. Another knock echoed. I cautiously cracked the door open and found a small envelope taped to the frame, no sender. I ripped it open, revealing a USB drive, its label bearing my initials. Travis hovered over my shoulder as I plugged it into my computer. A folder appeared, labeled simply, "Play Me." I clicked it, and a grainy black and white video filled the screen. It was filmed at Natalie's house. My voice, slurred from too much wine, filled the speakers. Brandon is so unbelievably smaller than Adrian. I can't even pretend otherwise. The audio was sharp, clear. I hadn't realized someone was recording. Tears welled up as the video continued, showing my girlfriend's laughter and my smug expression. The entire, humiliating conversation was preserved, and at the end, a message appeared. I have more. Travis looked at me, his face a mix of shock and disbelief. He's blackmailing you. This is serious, he muttered. I nodded, my throat tight with fear, unable to say a word. The worst part was that the footage corroborated everything Brandon had accused me of. He had recordings, and he wasn't afraid to use them. Even if I uncovered some office wrongdoing, that single video could destroy me. Days passed with no word from Brandon, but the message from the USB haunted me. My job was already hanging by a thread. If that video got out, especially to someone important, my career would be over. That's when it hit me. I still had one final play, a public apology. If I admitted my mistakes in front of everyone and begged for his forgiveness, perhaps I could strip him of his power over me. It would be humiliating, but at least it would be on my terms. I sent him another message. Monica, I'm done fighting. If you want me to publicly atone for everything I've said, I'll do it. Just meet me one last time, face to face. Surprisingly, he replied, Brandon, tomorrow, 8 p.m., your place, no one else. My stomach tightened. Was he planning to further humiliate me, or was this a chance for closure? Either way, I had no other option. The next evening, I paced nervously in my living room, muscles tense. He arrived precisely on time and let himself in. His face was unreadable. Brandon, I began quietly. Thanks for coming, I added. He nodded and set his phone on the coffee table. Make it quick. I've got things to do. I took a deep breath. I want to publicly apologize if necessary. I'll post a statement or record a video, whatever it takes. I'll admit to how I disrespected you, lied about you, belittled you. Maybe then, you'll stop blackmailing me. He raised an eyebrow, crossing his arms. You think a forced apology matters? Do you really believe that's going to erase the fact that you called me inferior behind my back? Tears threatened to spill as I shook my head. No. But what else can I do? You hold all the power. A bitter laugh escaped him. You still don't get it, do you? This wasn't about an apology. It's about you realizing that you can't treat someone like a joke and expect them to just accept it. My lip quivered. I do understand. I swear. He studied me for a long moment before sighing. I'm not going to destroy you, Monica. A wave of relief flooded through me. You're not? I whispered. He shook his head. I've had plenty of opportunities. I could have sent those videos to your boss, your family, your followers. What would that accomplish? You'd lose everything, and I'd be the one who ruined my ex-fiance's life. That's not a victory, he continued. It's just chaos. I sank onto the couch, tears streaming down my face. Thank you. I swear, I'll do anything to make things right. Brandon turned his face away, clenching his jaw. No matter what you said, it wouldn't change the fact that you made me feel worthless, like I was nothing more than a faulty part you could easily replace. The sting of it hit me harder than I expected. Every cruel word I had spoken came rushing back to me, repeating over and over, sharp and unrelenting. He took a deep, trembling breath. But maybe it's not all your fault. Maybe I was naive to believe that my consistency could bring you happiness. I should have known better. The silence between us grew heavy with regret. After a moment, he glanced at his phone, then back at me. I'll delete the files from my cloud, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I can't promise there aren't backups, but I won't use them. As for the wedding, it's over. We both know that. I wanted to throw myself at him, to beg him to reconsider, but the emptiness in his gaze told me it would change nothing. I understand, I whispered. He tapped a few keys on his phone, showing me the screen. Slowly, the folders bearing my name disappeared, one by one. There. It's done. A sob of relief escaped. yet it was tangled with a deep sorrow. "Brandon, I'm so sorry." He nodded, tears filling his eyes. "Me too. Sorry I spent so much time thinking you really wanted me." His words cut through me like a knife. Before I could even begin to respond, he turned and walked away. The door clicked shut behind him, soft, but in that moment, it felt louder than any slam. The following days and weeks were filled with grief, guilt, and a strange sense of release. With the threat of blackmail no longer looming, I didn't have to watch my every move, but the cost of that freedom was unbearable. The wedding was called off. My family was devastated. My friends, unsure of how to console me, didn't know what to say. Natalie kept me occupied with outings, while Melanie bluntly reminded me that if I had been kinder, it might not have come to this. One evening, I found an old photo album. In it, there was a picture of Brandon and me, laughing on vacation, him carrying me in his arms by a waterfall. Holding that photo, I broke down. How had I destroyed a man who had loved me so fiercely? I had turned him into someone bent on vengeance, and it was entirely my fault. Through mutual friends, I learned that Brandon was thinking of transferring, perhaps even moving out of state. He didn't share many details, only that the wedding was off. Not once did he try to ruin my reputation or expose the truth. Instead, he left me to face the consequences of my own choices. Some days, I wished he had exposed me. At least then, the waiting and guilt would end. But instead, he let me marinate in my regret, a punishment far worse than any revenge could ever be. Time, as it always does, continued to pass. The canceled wedding invitations were never formally explained, only a vague note from my mother that the ceremony had been postponed. Whispers circulated, and rumors took root. Some said Brandon had caught me cheating. Others insisted we just couldn't make it work. But no one knew the real reason. That harsh, drunken words had spiraled into an act of vengeance, turning him into the villain and me into the broken one. Every now and then, I find myself scrolling through old messages or flipping through photos of us, smiling, our arms around each other at family gatherings, laughing together during movie nights. Each one stabs me with a reminder of what we once had and how cruel words can wound deeper than anything physical. At night, I sometimes dream of seeing him years later. In those dreams, he's happy, perhaps with someone who treats him the way he deserves. And I stand there on the sidelines, realizing that I threw away the chance at a loyal, loving partner for the sake of a few short-lived laughs. And in those moments, the regret is almost unbearable, but it's a regret I brought upon myself. That regret has become my constant companion, a pain that never goes away because I turned a kind, steady fiancé into a bitter, vengeful ex. And though he ultimately chose not to ruin my life, the suffering I caused him and the person he became as a result will haunt me forever. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend, and if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you!